The cold tile presses against my cheek. It smells like lemon cleaner and something else, something metallic and sharp, like fear. My breath hitches, a ragged sound that seems too loud in the silent house. Outside, birds are singing. Inside, the world has stopped. My hand, shaking so violently I have to steady it with the other, grips the edge of the vanity. On the counter, his phone screen glows, illuminating the bathroom in a harsh, clinical light. A single message notification, still open, still burning itself into my retinas. Happy 5-year anniversary, my love. Can't wait for dinner tonight. Same place? November 3rd. November 3rd. November 3rd. My birthday. 5 years. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. We built this life brick by careful brick. Or so I thought. The charming bungalow with the creaky floorboards, the garden I poured my love into, the quiet evenings on the porch swing. Mark and I. A unit. Solid. Predictable in the best way. He was my anchor, my steady ground in a chaotic world. Or, he was the clever camouflage, wasn't he? The perfect illusionist. My life before this moment feels naive now, a pastel-colored dream. We had routines, comforting loops of shared meals, inside jokes, the soft weight of his arm around me on the sofa. Small moments that accumulated, building what felt like an unbreakable bond. I trusted him implicitly. He was Mark. My Mark. The man who remembered how I liked my coffee, who knew the exact spot on my back to rub when I was stressed, who looked at me sometimes with an easy affection that felt like home. My birthday, November 3rd, was always a small celebration. A quiet dinner out, a thoughtful gift, maybe a weekend trip if we felt adventurous. It was my day. Singular. Special to me. The idea that he had twisted it, poisoned it, repurposed it for them, it was a specific, targeted cruelty I couldn't comprehend. It wasn't just cheating, it was a desecration. It was taking something that belonged solely to me and gifting it, with perverse irony, to someone else. The discovery wasn't a dramatic movie scene. No lipstick on a collar, no frantic confession. It was mundane. He left his phone on the bathroom counter, unlocked. He never did that. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in the universe. I was brushing my teeth, catching my reflection, lost in the usual morning haze. The screen lit up. The notification popped. My eyes, still gritty with sleep, focused. And the world tilted. Happy 5-year anniversary, my love. Can't wait for dinner tonight. Same place? November 3rd. The breath left me in a rush. It was like being punched in the gut, but the pain wasn't physical. It was cold, spreading through my chest like ice water. 5 years. November 3rd. My birthday. The calculation clicked into place with sickening precision. Every birthday celebration, every cake, every wish I'd made over flickering candles for our future, they had been celebrating too. On my day. Using my day. I remember staring at the screen, tracing the words with my eyes as if reading them enough times would make them disappear, make them untrue. 5 years. That meant it started just a year into our marriage. A year. After all the vows, the promises, the shared dreams, a year later, he started building this secret life, marking its beginning on the day he was supposed to be celebrating me. The anger came first, a hot, searing wave. Then the nausea. Then a profound, bone-deep sadness that felt like my soul was cracking. I slumped to the floor, the cold tile a poor substitute for the warmth I suddenly craved and knew I'd never get from him again. The birds were still singing outside. Their cheerful chirping felt like a mockery. How could he? How could he sit across from me, hold my hand, kiss my forehead, and keep this monstrous secret? How could he look me in the eyes on November 3rd and pretend we were celebrating us? The depth of the deception was staggering. It wasn't just a physical betrayal, it was a psychological war waged right under my nose, using the very markers of my life against me. I stayed on the floor for a long time. The initial shock wore off, leaving a hollow ache. My mind, previously a whirlwind of panic, started to slow down, observing the wreckage. The perfect life, shattered. The trust, irrevocably broken. The man I loved, a stranger, a liar. And the date, November 3rd. That date was a symbol, a monument to his betrayal, built on the foundation of my personal celebration. Getting up was the hardest part. My legs felt like lead. My reflection in the mirror was unfamiliar, pale, eyes wide. A silent scream trapped behind my lips. I had to function. I had to pretend. He was still in the house. He didn't know I knew. This was my first fragile advantage. The element of surprise. I wiped my face, splashed water on my eyes, and walked out of the bathroom. He was in the kitchen, making coffee, humming softly. The picture of domestic bliss. I wanted to scream, to smash the mug in his hand, to claw at his lying face. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice in my head whispered, "Not yet. Not like this. Not on his terms." "Morning," I managed, my voice a little hoarse. He turned, a warm smile on his face. "Hey, sleepyhead. Coffee's ready." He kissed my cheek, a brush of lips that now felt like a physical violation. I flinched internally, but held still. "Thanks," I said, pouring myself a cup. My hand was shaking, but he didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. Pretending was agonizing. Every casual touch, every shared glance, every mundane conversation felt like a performance I was failing. I watched him, really watched him, for the first time in years. I saw the tiny lines around his eyes that weren't just from smiling, the way he avoided prolonged eye contact when he talked about his day, the subtle shift in his routine I'd attributed to work stress. It was all there, waiting to be seen. I had just been too trusting, too comfortable, too blindfolded by love. The message had mentioned same place? 11/03". Their anniversary dinner was tonight. On my birthday. The audacity was breathtaking. It wasn't just clandestine. It was a thumb in my eye. They were celebrating their milestone on the date meant for me. Panic flickered again. What was I supposed to do? Confront him? Demand answers? Pack a bag and leave? The conventional wisdom felt inadequate. This wasn't a conventional betrayal. It was twisted, personal, designed to wound on multiple levels. If I just confronted him, he'd deny, manipulate, minimize. He'd control the narrative. And I wasn't strong enough, not yet, to face his lies head-on without shattering completely. I needed proof. Not just the message. I needed to know who she was. I needed details. I needed leverage. Because the thought of just walking away, leaving him and her to celebrate their twisted love story, felt like another betrayal, this time of myself. They had taken my day. I needed to take something back. Something substantial. Something that hurt them the way they had hurt me. The rest of the day was a blur of forced smiles and internal turmoil. I went through the motions of preparing for my own birthday dinner, the one he had planned for us. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. He talked about the restaurant, pretending excitement. I nodded, played along, my mind racing. How could I get more information? How could I find out who she was before tonight? His phone. It was the key. But he was careful now, keeping it on him. He took it to the bathroom, kept it face down on his desk. He was acting cagey, probably, because it was the night. He was likely excited, anticipating his celebration with her. The thought made my stomach clench. I spent the day oscillating between crippling despair and a simmering rage that felt surprisingly strong. The date, November 3rd, repeated in my head, a mantra of betrayal. It was a physical weight, heavy in my chest. By late afternoon, a different feeling began to emerge. Coldness. A detached clarity. The emotional storm was receding, leaving behind a stark, frozen landscape. There was no room for sadness or hurt right now. There was only the problem to solve. The game to play. He left for errands around 5 p.m., saying he needed to pick something up for my birthday. I knew where he was going. Not for my gift. For their celebration. This was my chance. The house was silent again, but this time it wasn't empty. It felt charged, alive with my purpose. I went to his office, my heart hammering against my ribs. His laptop was there. He always left it unlocked. Another tiny carelessness I'd never noticed. Logging in felt like crossing a line, a trespass. But he had already obliterated all the lines. I wasn't snooping. I was excavating, digging through the ruins of my life for the truth. I started with his email, searching terms like dinner, anniversary, November 3rd. The first few emails were mundane work stuff. Then I found it. An email chain confirming a reservation at a fancy restaurant downtown. Not the one he'd told me we were going to. Subject line: anniversary dinner, date, November 3rd. Time: 7:30 p.m. Okay. Location confirmed. But who is she? The email was with a generic reservation confirmation, no recipient name mentioned beyond his. Frustration tightened my chest. I moved to his calendar. There it was, stark and bold on November 3rd. Dinner, restaurant name, at 7:30 p.m. And underneath, in smaller text, another entry. Dinner with Sarah, same restaurant name, at 7:30 p.m.
Sarah.
The name felt both anticlimactic and devastating.
Sarah.
Not some exotic, mysterious figure. Just Sarah. Who was Sarah? A coworker? A friend? I racked my brain. Had he ever mentioned a Sarah? Not that I could recall. I dug deeper. Looked for emails from Sarah. Found them. Casual, initially. Work-related. Then slowly the tone shifted. More personal. Flirty comments disguised as jokes. Plans to meet for coffee that extended into lunch. And then explicit messages. Pet names. Declarations of love. Referencing their special date, November 3rd. Talking about how they couldn't wait for their anniversary, how special that day was to them. Reading their words felt like acid in my veins. Their stolen intimacy, their plans, their shared history built on the ashes of mine. They talked about trips they'd taken, weekends away, things he'd told me were work conferences or visits to family. The lies were layered, intricate. But it wasn't just emotional. As I scrolled through the emails, I saw something else. Financial discussions. Sarah wasn't just an affair. She was involved in something else. Business? An investment? There were mentions of a joint account, discussions about funding a project, talks of splitting profits. It wasn't just romance. There was a financial entanglement, a shared venture they were building. A venture he was funding, at least partially, with our money. This changed everything. This wasn't just about a broken heart.
This was about theft. Fraud.
Using our marital assets to build a future with his mistress. The coldness solidified into something hard and sharp inside me. They weren't just lovers. They were partners. In love, in lies, and in business. Scrolling further, I found documents. Business plans, partnership agreements, details of an investment they were making together. It was significant. Enough to impact our finances. Enough to make him desperate to keep it hidden. And enough to give me substantial leverage. The realization hit me like a physical blow, even as it armed me. Sarah wasn't just a casual fling. She was deeply embedded in his life, planning a future with him, including a financial one. And she was doing it on my dime on the date of my birth. The rage returned, but it was controlled now. Focused. This wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about justice. About reclaiming what was mine. Not just the emotional territory they had invaded, but the tangible assets they were trying to steal. I spent the next hour systematically copying everything. Emails, documents, financial statements. I saved them to a secure cloud drive, double-checking that there was no trace left on his laptop. My hands were steady now. My mind was clear. The transformation from shattered wife to determined adversary was complete. They wanted to celebrate their 5 years? On my birthday? With my money? Fine. They could have their celebration. But I would be the uninvited guest. The one who brought the ultimate party favor. The trap began to set itself in my mind. They would be at the restaurant. The same restaurant. They would be expecting a romantic evening, toasting their future. They wouldn't be expecting me. I needed to be smart. I needed to hit them where it hurt the most. For him, it was likely exposure, losing his carefully constructed life, maybe the financial repercussions of the joint venture being revealed or collapsing. For her, what was her vulnerability? The financial stake? Her reputation. I looked back at the documents. The business they were starting seemed legitimate, or at least presented as such. It involved other potential investors. If it was exposed now, before it got off the ground, it could ruin them. Both of them. Especially if it was revealed how it was funded and the deceit behind it. The timing had to be perfect. Tonight. At their celebration. At 7:30 p.m. on November 3rd. He came home later, whistling. He had a small, prettily wrapped box in his hand. My birthday gift. The hypocrisy was staggering, but I held my tongue. I needed him to be unsuspecting. I needed him to walk willingly into the situation I was creating. "Ready for your birthday dinner?" he asked, smiling that smile I now knew was a mask. "Ready," I replied, meeting his eyes with a calmness that surprised even me. It wasn't just a performance anymore, it was a new reality. The woman he thought he knew was gone, replaced by someone forged in fire and ice. We went through the motions of getting ready. He was slightly nervous, fidgety, probably anticipating seeing Sarah. I felt nothing but a quiet hum of anticipation. Not nerves, just focus. He drove us to the restaurant. The other restaurant. The one he'd told me we were going to. A nice place, familiar. I played the part, admired the decor, ordered wine. We made small talk. He seemed relieved, maybe thinking he'd pulled it off. Thinking he could celebrate his secret life and his public life simultaneously, in different locations.
The food arrived.
It was good, I think. I barely tasted it. My mind was elsewhere. Calculating the time. 7:30 p.m. They would be arriving at their restaurant now. Sitting down. Ordering drinks. Raising a glass. I excused myself from the table, saying I needed to use the restroom. But I didn't go to the restroom. I walked swiftly to the entrance, out the door, and hailed a cab. The Grand Imperial, I told the driver, naming the restaurant I'd found in Mark's emails. The fancy one. Their place. The ride felt both too long and too short. My heart started to beat faster, a nervous rhythm. This was it. The point of no return. I checked my phone. The cloud drive linked to the copied files was ready. I knew exactly who I needed to send it to, the contacts I'd seen in the business documents, potential investors, key figures mentioned. People who needed to know what kind of partners Mark and Sarah truly were. The taxi pulled up to the Grand Imperial. It was grand, imposing. Lights twinkled. Valets moved smoothly. People in evening wear laughed as they entered. It looked like a world away from the quiet despair I'd inhabited just hours before. I walked through the doors, my shoulders back, my head held high. I wasn't dressed for a confrontation. I was dressed for my birthday dinner, the one I had planned to have before I knew. It was a small detail, but it felt important. I wasn't sneaking in as a wronged wife. I was arriving as the woman whose day they had stolen. I approached the maitre d'. "Reservation for Mark and Sarah," I said, my voice steady. He checked his list.
Yes.
For 7:30. They're already seated. Table 7-inch. Perfect, I smiled sweetly. "I'll just head over." He started to gesture, but I waved him off. "I know where it is." I didn't, not really, but I scanned the room. It was elegant, hushed. I saw them then. A table in the corner. Intimate, shielded. Mark laughing. Sarah leaning in, her hand on his arm. She was younger than me. Pretty, in a conventional way. She was wearing a dress that shimmered under the low lights. They looked happy. Content. Celebrating. On my day. A wave of pure, unadulterated rage surged through me, but it was contained, directed. It wasn't a wildfire, it was a laser beam. I walked towards table 7. Every step felt deliberate, weighted with purpose. The sounds of the restaurant faded. All I heard was the echo of their anniversary date, November 3rd. My birthday. They didn't see me until I was right beside the table. Mark was mid-sentence, raising his glass. Sarah was smiling, her eyes fixed on him. "Happy anniversary," I said, my voice cutting through their intimate bubble like glass shattering. Their heads snapped up. Mark's face went from relaxed amusement to absolute, utter horror in an instant. Sarah's smile froze, then slowly melted into confusion, then shock. What are you doing here?" Mark stammered, his glass shaking. Sarah just stared, her eyes wide. I didn't answer him. I looked directly at Sarah. "November 3rd, I said, my voice soft, conversational, utterly lethal. "That's my birthday, you know." Sarah's eyes flickered to Mark, then back to me. The confusion deepened. Mark looked like he was about to have a stroke. 5 years, I continued, still addressing Sarah. "Did he tell you it was his anniversary with his wife? Or did he just tell you it was your special day?" Sarah's face drained of color. She looked at Mark, her eyes now narrowed, suspicion dawning. "Mark," she whispered. Mark was speechless, gaping like a fish. "He didn't tell you, did he?" I smiled, a genuine, terrible smile that didn't reach my eyes. "He used my birthday as your anniversary. Every year, for 5 years. While celebrating my birthday with me, he was marking your milestone." Sarah recoiled slightly. "Is this true, Mark?" Her voice was sharp now, demanding. Mark finally found his voice, a strangled sound. It's not like that." "Oh, it's exactly like that," I said, turning my gaze to him. "You took the day I was born, the day that's supposed to be mine, and made it yours. Made it theirs. What kind of man does that?" Sarah looked utterly bewildered, betrayed not just by me showing up, but by the man sitting across from her. The foundation of her 5 years was built on a lie she hadn't known about. "And speaking of things he didn't tell you," I said, my voice rising slightly, drawing a few discreet glances from nearby tables, "did he tell you where the money for your little business venture came from?" Sarah's eyes snapped back to me. Her confusion was replaced by alarm. "What are you talking about?" "The significant investment you're making," I continued, letting the words hang in the air. "The one you've been planning for months. Did he mention it's mostly from our joint savings? Money I helped earn, money saved for our future? Your future is being built on my past." This was the knife twist. Not just the emotional betrayal, but the financial one. I saw her mind working, the calculation in her eyes. The risk to her investment. To her future with him. "That's not true." Mark finally blurted out, finding a burst of desperate energy. "It's my money. Mostly." "Is it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Because I have copies of all the emails, Mark. All the documents. The business plan. The partnership agreement. Your financial statements showing exactly which accounts you pulled from. And guess what? I just sent copies to everyone listed as a potential investor in your little scheme." I pulled out my phone, holding it up. "Sent," I said, my voice low and final. "They should be reading them right now." Sarah's jaw dropped. Her face went from pale to a ghastly shade of white. She looked at Mark, then back at me, then around the elegant restaurant, as if looking for an escape route. The hushed atmosphere felt like a vacuum, sucking the air out of the room. You sent them?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Every detail," I confirmed. "How you met. How long you've been together. How you celebrated your anniversary on my birthday. And, of course, the financial arrangements. I imagine your potential investors might have questions about the ethical and maybe even legal implications of building a company with funds essentially stolen from a marital account under a veil of such profound deceit." Mark lunged halfway out of his chair. "You can't do that," he hissed, his face contorted with rage and panic. "Oh, I just did," I said calmly. "Happy anniversary, Mark. Happy 5 years. Hope the calls from your investors are as pleasant as you hoped this evening would be." Sarah let out a choked sound. It wasn't a scream, not yet. It was a cry of disbelief, of horror, of her world collapsing around her. She finally understood. I hadn't come just to expose their affair. I had come to detonate their future. Their shared future, built on the lie of my past and my present, was now ashes. "You bitch!" Sarah shrieked, finally finding her voice, but it was broken, ragged. People at nearby tables turned to stare. She wasn't screaming at me for stealing Mark. She was screaming because I had just potentially ruined her financially, ruined the future she thought she had secured. "You ruined everything. You ruined it first," I said, my voice still steady, but with an edge of steel. "When you decided to build your happiness on top of mine. When you stole my husband and my money. When you used my birthday as your little love holiday." Sarah stood up abruptly, knocking her chair over. It clattered loudly, the sound jarring in the quiet restaurant. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't tears of heartbroken love. They were tears of furious, blindsided defeat. Mark reached for her, but she flinched away as if he were poison. His complicity in the scale of the deception, especially the financial aspect and the use of my date, had just become horrifyingly clear to her too. "I knew he was married," she sobbed, looking at Mark with raw fury. "But I didn't know. I didn't know this. This was everything. The depth of the lie, the financial exposure, the public humiliation, the sheer, petty cruelty of the anniversary date." I picked up the small, prettily wrapped box Mark had given me earlier. His birthday gift to me, brought to the wrong restaurant. "Oh, Mark," I said, shaking my head slightly, almost pityingly. "You brought my gift to the wrong place." I placed it gently on the table, beside the scattered cutlery and their half-eaten appetizers. "Consider this my gift to you both. A painful reminder of what you tried to steal." I looked at them one last time. Mark, slumped in his chair, face ashen, his eyes darting frantically between me and the entrance, probably calculating the fallout. Sarah, standing over the fallen chair, mascara running, her dream of a future with him and their business venture shattering in real time. "Enjoy your 5-year anniversary dinner," I said, my voice carrying just enough to ensure the closest tables heard. "It's a night none of us will ever forget, especially on November 3rd. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I walked out of the Grand Imperial with the same measured pace I had entered, leaving the wreckage of their celebration behind me. The maitre d' stared, unsure what had just happened. I just smiled politely and kept walking. Stepping back onto the street felt like emerging from a long, suffocating tunnel. The night air was cool and clean. The city lights twinkled, indifferent to the human drama that had just unfolded. I hailed another cab. Inside, the silence was deafening. The adrenaline was starting to recede, leaving behind a vast emptiness. I had done it. I had turned the tables. I had blindsided them. I had taken their moment of triumph and twisted it into their moment of utter ruin. I had used their own weapon, strategic planning and leveraging information, against them, but on a much grander scale, ensuring not just emotional pain but tangible, financial, and reputational devastation. The Mistress screamed. Mark collapsed into himself, and their carefully constructed future was in tatters. My birthday, November 3rd, was now permanently etched in their minds not as their anniversary, but as the day it all came crashing down because of the woman they betrayed. But victory felt hollow.
Sweet, yes.
Deeply, viscerally satisfying to see the shock and panic on their faces, to hear her scream of defeat. But the emptiness remained. They had hurt me profoundly. I had hurt them back, arguably worse. Had it fixed anything?
No.
It had just burned everything down. I looked out the cab window, watching the city lights blur. My marriage was over. My sense of security was gone. The man I loved was a stranger. But I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the one who had held the match, who had struck it, who had walked away from the fire she started, ensuring it consumed them instead. The ride home was quiet. The house was dark when I arrived. It felt different now. Not a sanctuary, but a battleground where the first skirmishes had been fought. I walked through the rooms, each one holding memories, now tainted. The sofa where we curled up, the kitchen where we cooked, the bedroom we shared. All lies. I didn't cry. The tears were still frozen inside me. Or maybe they had been burned away in the fire I lit. I felt tired. Profoundly, fundamentally exhausted. But also free. The heavy weight of their secret, of my forced performance, was lifted. The phone rang. It was Mark. I stared at the screen, watching his name flash, listening to it ring in the silent house. I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say to him. My message had been delivered at table 7. Another call came in. An unknown number. Probably Sarah. I ignored that too. Their drama wasn't my drama anymore. The aftermath wasn't instant peace. It was a slow, painful process of dismantling a life. Dealing with the fallout from the exposed business deal, which did indeed collapse, leading to legal battles and financial ruin for Mark and likely Sarah. Dealing with the shared assets, the house, the divorce. It was messy, ugly, and protracted. But through it all, I held on to that feeling from the restaurant. The moment of reclaiming my power. The knowledge that I hadn't just curled up and died. I had fought back. I had been underestimated, dismissed, used. But I had risen from the ashes and delivered a blow they would never forget. The date, November 3rd, is still my birthday. It will always be marked by the shadow of that night. It will never feel quite the same. But it's mine again. I took it back. I stood on that date, the symbol of their deceit, and made it the date of their downfall. It wasn't redemption, not in the traditional sense. It was something colder, harder. It was vindication. It was the quiet satisfaction of knowing that they had tried to erase me, to build their future on my foundation, and I had pulled the foundation out from under them. The house feels less like a battlefield now, more like a reconstruction site. There are still ghosts in the corners, echoes of the past. But they're fading. I'm rebuilding, brick by painful brick, a new life on solid ground. Ground that is solely mine. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.